Radio Free Skaro.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Radio Free Skaro, episode number 737. I am Stephen in Edmonton.
We're in Vancouver.
And Chris in Edmonton.
We hope everyone is safe and well and at home, keeping safe and well. You're not stuck at home. You're safe at home, as George Carlin perhaps would say once. But we're starting to try something a little different here on the podcast because, you know, news is as it is. It's mostly like tweetalongs on Twitter is basically what Doctor Who news amounts to these days, it seems, because, you know, the world has essentially shut down. So we're going to start like sort of bringing on friends, isolated friends who have no one else to talk to in the world apart from us. That's a bloody lie. Just to sort of check.
Wow.
Check.
I'm sorry.
I'm doing that because our guest is so polite that he won't interject this backhanded introduction that I'm giving him. But anyway, we're bringing on people to sort of like, you know, give us their perspective and how life is going for them and whatever profession they are in and such like that. So the first victim in this instance, who has long sort of like been on the cusp of being on the show and never once made it onto Radio Free Skaro, but now finally, after years of pestering, not really pestering at all. Steve Barry from Big Finish Opportunity Knocks. Hello, Steve. How you doing?
Hello, Edmonton. This is Steve in London calling through. Finally made it. It only took a global pandemic to get me on this show.
And who gets your 12 points, Steve?
Oh, we haven't gotten any Eurovision this year, have we? It's sad to say, but then, you know, I think we're getting a best of highlight show or something. I am locked in my office, in my home, where I have actually been for about 6 to 8 weeks anyway.
Oh, really?
Because Big Finish actually moved offices just before all of this news broke, and I wandered in, took one look at the state of the new place. I thought, I'm not unpacking any of that. And have been working from home since then. But obviously a couple of days later, that was it. The call was put out. Don't come in. Don't brave the tube lines. Don't start mingling with other people. And as I'm sure you know, we've moved very quickly to try and keep everybody apart. But we can chat at length about that later on. But for now, here I am. In a small office that has been my home for a very long time.
Yeah. We were all getting very used to our homes, and I'm watching the news and stuff. We're all getting a very, I saw, you see the living rooms of so many people, from premiers of provinces in Canada to like famous authors to random schmoes and stuff like that. Robert Smith, who was a co-writer of... who's the Doctor too, who was on this very podcast 2 or 3 weeks ago with Graham Burke. He was on CBC News talking about the outbreak because he's a professor at University of Ottawa, and there's like his massive DVD collection in the background. So it's weird how our worlds are crossing over into, like, you know, we talk on Zoom and Skype all the time, and then all of a sudden the whole world is now too. But yeah, I do want to get a taste, I suppose, of how life has changed for Big Finish and you know, the production of new items. And of course, you guys record so much well in advance that you've got stuff to sort of trot out over the coming weeks and months. But we will touch on that. But there is other news. Most of it, as I said, tweet-along news. But hey, here's a bit of breaking news in a way. So Phantom Films has been one of these things that have sort of started in on the tweet-alongs as well. What was it, just last week? They did a virtual convention with, like, you know, Annette Badland and Mark Strickson, amongst others, were interviewed over Zoom, and it was streamed on YouTube. Well, they they did a thing today, being Saturday. We're recording this on Saturday, where they did an Enemy of the World tweet along, but they also sort of had some stuff before and after archive interviews for the most part. But they did have a new interview with Phil Morris, he of Missing Episodes fame. And a nugget of information that Philip Morris dropped in the interview was he knew of at least 6 missing episodes that are in the hands of private collectors. He also went on to say that he thinks that there are some collectors in Australia who have episodes as well. I don't know if those are the same or part of the same that have those 6 missing episodes, or if they're added to that. But
how much of a Venn diagram crossover there is? Yeah.
Where is it? Is that in addition to the 2 episodes that Paul Vanessa said on this very podcast that he knew was being taken care of and well in existence? So yeah, that was.
Did he give any more clues though? That's what I want to know. Did he say that the person they have a hat and a moustache and
where they live, their address?
No, he didn't.
And we can all
say
play
that.
the Guess Who game of who's got the missing episodes.
Yeah, well, sadly, no, he did not do that. But it was intriguing that he didn't claim, like I have them or like I know where they are, or something like the fact that he actually singled out film collectors as having them is like, okay, it's out of his control. Like, if someone was perhaps an egomaniac, he could say, well, I know where they are and you can't have them and such. But the fact that he actually referred to a collector as having them or collectors, I thought was intriguing.
Maybe this is a turf war, a silent turf war between them. That's the signal. It's like international diplomacy, where you say one thing and it signals to the other person another thing. It's détente, if you will. And also, my theory is it's the faceless ones, because they just animated the faceless ones. So why not have it be those?
That's true. Just make all their hard work just moot. And then oddly enough, they find the faceless ones and they realize, wait a second, there was a picture of Sasha Dewan in there the whole time. What is the odds of that?
What?
Oh, I'm glad that the Omni rumor is back to keep us entertained for this period.
Good
of
old Omni.
Yeah.
I agree.
If he knows where they are, they're not missing, are they?
Right, exactly. That's well, I mean, like, and he also sort of alluded to, like, he sort of has, he knows where episode 3 of Web of Fear, because the news director apparently of the station in Nigeria is the one that walked off with it. Apparently, like shortly after, saying, "Oh, I'm going to take these. I'm just going to walk off with this." Apparently, he's comfortable knowing where that is too. So I don't know if that's part of the 6 as well, but who knows? Get talking, everybody. Omni Rumor is back. It's back in business, baby.
Great.
Yeah, I was actually on a podcast, Something Who, this past week, talking about missing episodes. Just talking about the general, concept of missing episodes. It's not like we broke down where things were or anything like that, but it was just a fun chat with Richard of Something Who. So the link's in the show notes if you want to have a listen to. So yeah, out of all things, missing episodes back in vogue during the global pandemic. How about that?
The Omni Rumor is its own pandemic. It seems
it is
kind of comes and takes over for a while and goes away.
Yeah. Also, Phantom Films announced that they have recorded a new commentary for The Space Pirates. I'm assuming it's only episode 2, given that that's the only one that exists. But you never know. Really, if you're listening to The Space Pirates, are you really even paying attention? Maybe they're commenting on the loose cannon recon of it. That would be different.
Well, there's a picture tweeted out of Toby Haydock, Wendy Padbury and Fraser Hines, and I guess it depends on how much they want to make Fraser Hines and Wendy Padbury sit there and watch a recon. I can see Toby doing it no problem. But,
yeah,
I'm not so
more
sure.
than no problem.
Not so sure about Wendy and Fraser.
No. Any thoughts on the Space Pirates, Steve? Is that something that Big Finish has yet to mine? A Space Pirate spinoff? Because I feel it's ripe. It's
the Milo
right
Clancy
there.
Chronicles.
Oh,
it's sitting right there, Steve. Come on.
Look, we're always looking for lovely gaps into which we can slot stories as well. But yeah, one of the things I love about Toby Haydock is that he always dresses for the occasion at these commentaries, which presumably are audio only, not video. And yet there he is in a three-piece blue suit with the tie and the pocket square and everything.
It's impressive, isn't it?
Bless him.
Yeah.
It's almost as impressive as getting a TV movie Eric Roberts reference into this. That was very well done, Steve.
Thank you very much. Yeah. No spoilers, but we have got a master story coming along. There may be one or two things coming up in the future with the Eric Roberts Master, but
that's
no
true.
spoilers.
It's been announced.
Spoilers.
That's been announced, so we can talk about that.
That's been announced.
Yeah.
That's been announced. Yeah.
It's going to be so many
nothing if not a tease.
There's going to be so many nods and winks from Steve. What I said you're from Big Finish, but what is your actual title at Big Finish?
I'm the head of marketing and publicity, so I'm kind of in charge of all of the communications with the outside world. So yeah, the place, as you're aware, is a hive of secrets.
Yes.
And then I'm in charge of when people hear about those things. And actually, the kind of the reason I was brought in, I've actually been with them a year, but I've been keeping very, very, very much in the background. And so really my job is to make everybody who works there look like a rock star in front of the world. So very infrequently do I make a public appearance and come out and wave a tentacle. So this is a rare experience, and obviously I've been angling, as you said, to be on this podcast forever. So I won't be making a habit of it. That's all I can say. Yeah. Just the job is to make Big Finish as noisy and as noticeable as possible, and to grow our audiences as much as we can.
Right. Yeah. I'm just scratching off Terror of the Zygons line as well. There we go. We've got Terror of the Zygons and the TV movie. Let's see how many other stories we can work.
We'll see if I can get a new series reference in before the end.
Good luck.
Thank you.
So I did mention tweetalongs. So there was Chris has listed this in order, and if I go off this order, I will miss one. So Phantom's doing one next weekend after the Enemy of the World one that happened on Saturday. Saturday, April 11th, there's going to be a live tweet-along for Silver Nemesis with Sophie Aldred. They chose Silver Nemesis. That was the one.
Yeah. Who drew that short straw?
I don't know.
Everyone. Absolutely everyone.
I guess so. But hey, you know what? Watching it with a tweet-along, maybe that'll be even more interesting. There was also a Doctor Who one, like an official Doctor Who one. Emily Cook from Doctor Who magazine has been wrangling all these, and they did 11th Hour that happened on the April 3rd. We'll say April 3rd for people listening to this on the day it comes out. It was the 10th anniversary of Matt Smith's debut, everyone. We're up to that point in history right now. There's a big live tweet-along. Steve Moffat joined Twitter once again for that. There's a news story from Pete McTighe, which sort of like filled in the gaps a little bit in Jodie Whittaker's time. That came out on the blog. I think it was on April 1st, actually, oddly enough, wasn't it? Which is April Fool's Day. Which
days blend together a little too easily now. So I don't know.
No, I don't know either.
Is it Saturday? I can't even tell what day it is.
It is, as we record this. And there'll be another tweet along with Neil Gaiman doing The Doctor's Wife on April 11th. Emily Cook announced that. So all these things are happening. Amazon Prime was jumping in on it. They made like 11th Hour free for the day for people to watch along. But probably the best thing that happened was a new story. Short story called The Raggedy Doctor, which is written by Stephen Moffat, artwork by Sophie Isles, who we all met, I think, for the first time at Gallifrey 1 this past February, back when we could meet people, and narrated by Caitlin Blackwood, who played, of course, Amelia Pond, and she did the narration on this, and it was a very touching, sweet story. It's about 3.5 minutes long. It's like basically a storybook in a way. It was just quite lovely. So links in the show notes if you missed all of that.
Yeah, trigger warning for big Rory fans. He gets put down a lot in that.
No, the final line is very positive.
It is, but they talk about him being forgotten under the bed during hide and seek or some such.
Well,
do you know the thing that's really been choking me up through watching these? I've been watching the tweet-alongs. Is the continuity announcements that they've had. So Emily's got the original continuity announcer from BBC One, who did the announcements 10, 15 years ago to recreate them, but he's doing them with a modern eye, and he keeps sort of referencing, kind of what we all need now to bring us all together as a doctor. And I listened to it or watched it on YouTube prior to the episodes going out, and genuinely shed a tear. It takes a lot to move me, but there was something about just that kind of reflecting back. It's a combination of the nostalgia and just the different world that we're in now than we were in when those stories were going out. So yeah, quite emotional.
Yeah, I did see the first one of that. He did for the Day of the Doctor, I think it was the one that he does. How all we need is a Day of the Doctor. Yeah, and that was that voice. It's kind of. I mean, we don't necessarily have a connection to it here in Canada, but if we have the same guy, he's long since passed away, sadly. But the guy who did the voiceovers on PBS in the '80s. On our local PBS station, and now,
he was old then, so yeah.
Yeah, but he had such a dulcet tone. Now, Doctor
he did have a
Who.
great voice.
Yeah, Doctor Who. He didn't have quite the abrasive
He didn't
American
sound like
accent.
that much of a DJ.
No, he didn't, thankfully. But if I could hear that voice again, saying the words Doctor Who, I've been scouring YouTube for a long time looking for PBS, KSPS Spokane stuff.
I have a VHS tape at my parents' place, so when this current emergency is lifted, I will find it and I will rip that particular bit of audio from the Seeds of Doom.
Oh, that'd be lovely. Also, jumping in on the tweet along, the Radio Times organized a Captain Jack Harkness watch along with John Barrowman and Naoki Mori. And I think Catherine DeGeneres was also on Twitter for that too, for that thing as well. So tweet alongs are the way. Sort of all the Doctor Who fans to sort of get together. I have barely been around for them because my Twitter just sort of explodes for them, and I had to like go out and like fend for food during the 11th hour one. I don't know. It's weird for me anyway. Like I work from home as it is for the most part. And so to have like scheduled things happen at a certain time, it's almost like off-putting. Like I find myself like I'm kind of enjoying the lack of schedule right now, and all of a sudden I have to be somewhere to watch something at this exact time, and I feel like I'm a little bit put out by it. Has anyone else sort of like really dove into these live tweet-alongs?
No, because I'm working from home and I'm working a lot more because I'm a journalist and we have to report on nothing but this stupid virus. So,
yeah.
So from like 8 to 5, I'm pretty much staring at my computer and don't have time to do anything else.
Mm-hmm.
I can't pay Twitter that much attention for that long to really follow along with the tweet along. So I've not partaken.
Right.
And I've been watching them from first of all from a personal interest. So the first one, I was actually in quarantine. So I came down with some sort of virus about 3 weeks ago. And so self-quarantined in my own bedroom, in my own house, while the rest of my family were outside for 2 weeks. I'm not entirely sure it was C19 or coronavirus, but it was some sort of horrible, nasty bug. So I was keeping well away from everybody. So I watched the first one from within my quarantine room and my makeshift office, but also kind of keeping a weather eye on them from the perspective of the fact that Doctor Who is trending at the top of Twitter every few days.
Every single one.
Yeah, absolutely.
Every single one has hit number one on the UK Twitter trends.
And I mean, we've done what we can to help Emily out with them. We've not done very much, but we've tried to sort of connect her with musicians who can provide audio and help with a few bits and pieces. And we are obviously talking to her about what Big Finish might do in the same area. And of course, if it's an 11th Doctor story, then we have 11th Doctor stories, so we'll be putting those on sale at the sort of the back end of when it's trending, because we want to be able to sort of spread the word about our stuff. So I've also got the weather eye in terms of my marketing hat on as well, and thinking about the fact that if everyone's talking about Doctor Who, we want to make sure we're part of that conversation.
Russell T. Davis tweeted out a picture a few hours ago now, I guess, of the TARDIS console, which with the first Doctor and his companions around it, saying with a caption of something like, "We're going back to 2008." So presumably an upcoming one is going to be a Series 4. Series 4 tweet along. So there's your chance for some Tennant and Tate Big
Yeah.
finishes to go on sale.
Yeah,
I
we're
feel
picking
like
up
with-
the clues the same time as you are a lot of the time.
Yeah, I feel like them hanging around a TARDIS console means it's going to be Journey's End or something like that, because it's a very celebratory world in strife kind of episode. It feels like a natural to be the next tweet along, or our future tweet along, I suppose I should say. There'll be other ones too. Like, it's not just going to be RTD era and Moffat era, and indeed up to the Matt Smith era. There's going to be some Capaldi, I think, later on. Well, it'll be interesting to see if there's any, because it's easier to sort of do it like retrospectively in an era that has passed. Whereas the Jodie Whittaker era is still the current era, and you don't have quite the same nostalgia as a current showrunner doing it as perhaps a past showrunner. So it'll be interesting to see if there's going to be any of those coming along.
By the same token, if you did like a Jodie Whittaker era thing, most of the writing and production team are on Twitter anyway. Like all the writers that are there, like it's easy to get Pete McTighe, Vinay Patel, Joy Wilkinson, whomever,
Right.
to participate, and obviously Chibnall and Whittaker are not on there, but
No, although BBC America did one with the Spyfall one. They did a Spyfall
That's
one.
true.
with
Yeah.
Sasha Dewan,
With Sasha Dewan on there. So
we
they're all
talked about that
jumping
one
on.
last week, I think.
I don't remember.
And they got they got Matt Smith to participate in the 11th Hour.
Yep. As well as Vincent and the Doctor. He did that one too.
Or Vincent the Doctor was the first one. Sorry, not.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah, Vincent the Doctor. So I mean, they, if they can get the people there, then obviously the newer the series, possibly the easier the participants are to get.
Quite possibly. Since they're not doing anything else after all. I mean, it's neat to see Karen Gillan talk about her Doctor Who days again on Twitter, and she post short videos of her watching and then crying or fake crying perhaps. But anyway, so Big Finish is also coming. I mean, there's some items in the news list, Steve, that we can just ask you about because it's much easier. Chris says in the news list, Big Finish will be adding free Doctor Who audios to their app starting next week. What's that about?
That's right. So we, it's people know the story, right? So we sell full cast audio dramas of Doctor Who, starring mostly the original cast from the relevant eras. At least kind of doctors from Tom Baker onward. And we usually sell those in a number of formats. CD, remember those? Remember CDs? they were the discs that people used to buy before they all started buying vinyl again, which we also do. We do vinyl as well, and also downloads. Now, once the public health advice was that people had to start social distancing, it was quite easy for us to move our cast out of studios because most of them will have their own home studios, so we can still record with them. And most of our producers and directors, etc., are all freelance anyway. And it's not like there is a big Finish headquarters where everybody comes in and the studios are all part of it. It's all they're all kind of fragmented across different studios in London and in places like Tunbridge Wells and the Midlands. So people were sort of used to remote working anyway. But we do have a warehouse full of the stock. So the CDs themselves were still being posted out, but ultimately you can't have warehouse staff coming in to do that job. It's a non-essential job. So we took the decision quite early on to make sure that they could stay home. Mm-hmm. And I think the term furloughed. Every time I hear the word furlough, I immediately think of Mark Strickson driving.
Me too. Every time.
Driving a little jalopy around. But so effectively everybody is at home, which means we can't send out CDs. We can still do downloads, etc. But we also thought that what we should be doing now is opening up our apps as a distribution channel to let more people hear more stories more often. And originally our app was just a listening app. So you could buy your Doctor Who audio, then you could use the app to download it, but you'd have to have paid for it first. Now what we're going to do is we're starting to move towards what I think is called a freemium model. So we're going to be putting more things. So when people download the app, they should be able to instantly download a selection of free audio. And there is some on there already, but we're going to increase the amount that we have on it. So some of it will be full stories, some of it will be part stories, part episodes, maybe episode 1 of a box set or so on. And we will keep doing it until such a time that this is all over.
Right.
There are all kinds of reasons why we can't make everything we do free to people all of the time. Not least because the people who have acted in it or written or directed, etc., are due to receive royalties. And they can only do that if people pay for the stories. So we are in a period of reaction, and we're trying to be as proactive as possible, and we are in unprecedented times, so we're trying to take a few unprecedented steps and see what we can do. So free Doctor Who audios via the app, which you can get at bigfinish.com and download it there. It works on Android and on whatever the Apple operating system is, because I don't use that one.
Right.
So it's there, and it runs on most systems anyway. So and fingers crossed we'll be able to do some interesting and exciting stuff.
How intriguing. Yeah, I mean, you mentioned that a lot of people sort of work remotely, record remotely. I know Tom Baker sort of has done a lot of recordings from his home because he's in his 80s and doesn't necessarily want to travel all across England to record Big Finish audios. How much of a shift has it been? I mean, I was lucky enough to visit back in 2015 to Big Finish Studios and watch a recording of a Colin Baker story. And that's a thing that doesn't happen, obviously. So how many recordings had to be adjusted, perhaps postponed? Was there anything like that, sort of to prepare for having to alter your production schedule?
Yeah, so we have an excellent senior producer whose name is David Richardson, and his hair is turning slowly grey as he reschedules on an almost daily basis. You're wrong about Tom, by the way. Tom loves going into studio and absolutely, right. I think the word is adores it. He adores it. And he loves to be around actors, and he loves to take part in the same room with all the other actors. So but he's also very good at embracing new technology. And yes, when we had the first recording session with Tom, and the director, I think, was Nicholas Briggs, and we had David Richardson producing. So they took a screenshot of the first session with him, and we put that out on our Twitter, and it broke the internet for the day because people just love him. And it was great, and it's great to see him starting up. We have been genuinely surprised at the number of our actors or regular actors that we work with who have their own home studios. We weren't quite expecting them to be so ready to shift to a remote recording process, but I mean, we're talking in over 100 actors that we've regularly worked with who are set up now, and the ones who aren't, we've been shipping microphones to. And teaching them remotely how to record. So we use Zoom as to direct, if you like. So everyone's connected that way, but they record the audio locally, and then that is sent through to the sound engineers at the studios that we are used to using. So we have 2 or 3 favoured studios. We have the Moat, which is run by Toby. We have the Sound House, which is Freddie and her team, and then we have Paul at Audio Sorcery, which is the one in Tunbridge Wells. So those are the 3 main studios. There are plenty of others, but those are the 3 main studios. And they have moved very quickly to set up to be the still be the central hub of where all of the audio is being channeled to, if you see what I mean. So we're keeping everybody as busy as we can. And I actually saw, and what's been quite heartening is seeing people like Jacob Dudman sort of using his time at home and building his studio and setting it up. So a lot of people are kind of quite being quite positive, but also being quite open and sort of advertising their availability. If you see what I mean. No, I was going to say, in terms of the of how it's done technically, it would seem to, from what I've heard from the directors, it seems to be just as good as sitting on the other side of a piece of glass from the people that you're acting with. There will be a certain element of a lack of camaraderie, I suppose, if you know what I mean. But most of the time, you're spending half the time trying to break up discussions to get people into the studio. They're all in the green room having a good old natter about which sort of acting school they went to and all the old teachers they remember. So actually, it's half the time you're dragging the actors into the studio to do the recording. Now it's almost a more efficient way of doing it.
Okay, two questions about that. Because one, I wanted to ask a while back was because I'm intrigued by the microphone. So are you sending them brand new microphones, like ordering them and buying them and sending them, or are you sort of like let's send one from the studio and send it off to them and they'll send it back? Like what's the deal with that?
I don't know. I don't know the financial terms, whether or not we're doing
Right.
we're doing on a hire purchase. But no, we're shipping new mics to people. Yeah. So the people.
And I imagine there's some tweaking involved because of different sound quality from different places.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think as people saw, Tom is recording it in what looks like a scullery.
Right.
There was I was watching a nice video the other day, and so I'm watching him record. I was on the Zoom conference, and then I saw his missus walking down the stairs behind him into the scullery. And some people are set up, different levels, but ultimately, all of the audio quality can all sort of be normalized and equalized by the sound designers in the post-production process. And as you've probably already been aware, some of the producers and directors and actors have just kind of gone off and done their own thing. So we ended up with Scott Hancock and Alexander Vlahos recording a Dorian Gray story entirely via iPhone. So that was part of the narrative. It was Dorian Gray on a train experiencing the pandemic and the lockdown, and but leaving messages for himself via an iPhone. So people are actually building the process, building the reaction into the narratives, and all of our creatives are responding in different ways. And there are so many things that are in production at the moment. People will barely notice a hiccup in the recording and the releasing schedule.
Have you when you're recording each part, are you actually trying to coordinate to have 2 or 3 actors on the same Zoom call and record all their parts at once, or is it just literally one actor at a time reading their bits off a page with is anyone reading their lines to them at that point, or are they just like reading stuff?
Yeah, so both of those things. So sometimes, yes, there'll be more than one actor recording a scene down the line, but listening to each other on the Zoom conference so they can bounce off one another. And other times we will have, again, actors working with us who are doing what's called reading in, which is delivering the alternative lines to the lead. But that isn't any different from how we would do things anyway. A lot of the productions for Big Finish are based around actor availability. A lot of the things that the reason we record things so far in advance is because we might, for example, have one day of David Tennant's time. Because he's a very busy man and very popular, but he still loves coming back to do Big Finish. So if there is one day where we can fit him into the schedule, he'll come into the studio, and we'll have other people reading in the lines, and then at a later date we'll be able to fill in the other actors. So I don't know, for example, if it was Catherine Tate, we would, and maybe we can get Catherine Tate 6 months later, and it all gets stitched together. And honestly, it's done so seamlessly, you don't notice it. And like I say, that is a standard means of production for Big Finish anyway. We're used to doing things like that, and no one has noticed this far. So I don't think anyone's going to notice any difference here on in. Like Warren said, there'll be some people who work with microphones that don't sound perfect, but most of the time that can all be fixed in post-production.
Oh, not even that. I just meant they're in different locations, so there's going to be different ambient audio, sort of different acoustics.
Yeah, no, exactly. And
Yeah.
again, I think, as I say, by the time you've put sound effects and music and so on in the background, it's almost imperceptible.
That's great. I mean, because Big Finish is the podcast of new sort of like drama production, and then like as you say, it's very easy for you guys to shift production to this kind of thing. It's a lot more difficult for TV. All the late night talk shows are basically being done via Zoom and stuff, with varying degrees of success. I find it actually quite interesting. I've been watching bits of Last Week Tonight with John Oliver, which is just him in his living room, but like on a white screen and stuff, and with no audience, but it still actually works. So
I
find it frightening because it means the YouTubers have won, and I cannot countenance that at all.
One thing I've definitely noticed is that I suppose with some relief is the lack of lighting rigs that most people have and high definition cameras.
Yeah.
So in actual fact, it's quite good because it means that most people are not trying to be Instagram stars.
True. Also, I've noticed the more qualifications somebody has, the worse their background is when they do the webcam interviews. Like, you find some very intelligent doctor and they've just got, like, they're in a basement somewhere. And then you find somebody like an Instagram person and they've got an amazingly curated background.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. But
the one thing people are going to miss, actually, I've realised, you've just put the finger on it, they're going to miss all of those photographs in the Big Finish car park.
That's
of the cast and crew together. So, that is, we're not going to have those photos anymore.
And you're not going to have Toby's famous lunches either at the boat. So that's another thing that won't be unless you're packaging them up as like a Meals on Wheels. Toby cooks it up and then sends them off to various different actors' locations, and they could still relish in the food. And it is good food because I had it when I was there. So you can't do that either. That's probably your biggest drawback, I have to think.
Well, one would imagine that he's saving a lot of time and money and energy not making them, unless he does start to do it as a spin-off. As absolutely, he's had 20 years of free advertising about how good his cooking is.
Yes. Yeah, it is stunning. Like, he asked me, like, first thing, what'd you like? I said, I'm a vegetarian. Okay, I'll cook you up something nice. And he did. Some eggplant-based thing. And I don't usually like eggplant, but I did that day. Damn it. It was very, very good. And of course, this doesn't stop the new releases being announced. Like, there's a couple things coming down the pipeline, like Davros returning to the Time War, and the Eighth Doctor of the Time War Volume 4, which is coming out in September of 2020. And then another Big Finish Torture, a dinner and a show by Gareth David Lloyd, which is coming out in June of 2020. Give us a few words on each of those there, Steve, if you wouldn't mind.
So the Time Wars story, that was the last time I went into studio. And that, honestly, that is the thing that I'm missing, actually, is that I'm missing going to the studios and seeing the actors working. And obviously we wanted to be there because we want to chat to them for behind-the-scenes audio and also behind-the-scenes video. So there's your exclusive. We do have a nice Terry Malloy video coming out as soon as it's edited, which I think is incumbent on me to commission somebody to actually do the editing of that video. So that was nice. That was and everyone was there, and so Paul McGann was in the same day, and it was also nice to see. There's an actor called Jemima Rooper, who we worked out had last been in a Big Finish production 11 years ago. And honestly, she didn't look a day older. She's quite a successful TV actor in the UK. She's done a lot of those kind of period dramas and a lot of well-respected work. So she's been very busy for the last 11 years, and then we managed to get her in for a day for a little guest slot on that show. So it is good to have been there on that last day. I really hope that. We were all doing the bumping elbows thing at the time. We were all slightly treating it as not terribly serious. But
I think we bumped elbows for about 2 days, I think, essentially. And then all of a sudden it was over. And we're all at home. I remember those days. I never bumped an elbow. Never once had even the chance to bump an elbow before things ramped up.
And then
The
Torture,
perils of
Dinner and a
working at
Show is, as you rightly pointed out, written by Gareth David Lloyd, starring Gareth David Lloyd and Naoko Mori, who recorded that in Cardiff. And if you look back on, I think, Gareth's Twitter feed, you will have spotted him and Naoko messing around outside Yanto's shrine. So you can work out when it was recorded by the date that they decided to film that. And I think I can give you another title. We've got August's Torchwood title is the intriguingly named Red Base. There you go.
Ooh.
That is a Radio Free Skaro exclusive. I can say no more than that. Partly because I don't know any more than that.
Convenient.
Such as it is. Well, that's fab. I'm glad that I'm glad you're feeling better after your time in the quarantine tank that is your room. I'm glad that Big Finish is treating you well and indeed treating its listeners well, Steve, as it continues to send out content for all of us to enjoy while we do our best to stay at home and fight off this global pandemic that we're currently going through.
Absolutely. I mean, thank you. First of all, I've just remembered that I saw some of our producers and directors doing a Zoom conference last night. I think they would have set up a glass of wine and a little chat together. So, the modern day technology is helping people stay together. Also, didn't get an invite to that, so I'll clearly have to set up my own. We're also seeing a lot of people's homes, a lot more of people's homes, colleagues than we used to, and the various kind of difficulties they have. Because I have 2 children who are being homeschooled, and there is our business manager has also got 2 kids at home, and we absolutely are all about making sure that we're still providing the listeners with as much entertainment as we can. And you know what, it's there are people out there who work in public health who are doing an amazing job, and we have been in the UK. I don't know if this has been happening so much in Canada, but we have been on a weekly basis. Everybody's been walking out and sort of applauding into the streets the people who work in the National Health Service and all of the key workers.
Yeah, we're doing that here,
and that's just been heartening as well. And we're by no means are we an essential service, but we are doing our very best to entertain people, and sometimes you do just need that distraction. Sometimes you just need to be able to tune out the rest of the world, plug in some headphones, just listen to something that's just pure escapism. So I hope that we're still doing a good job, and I hope that we continue to do so throughout this period. And let's hope it is as short as possible, a pandemic, and we can all come out and laugh about this in 6 months' time.
Here's hoping. I mean, it's it's not just us sort of being stuck inside. Sadly, there are people dying because of this pandemic. Hamish Wilson, who played Jamie in that one episode of The Mind Robber all the way back when, sadly passed away this past week because of complications with COVID-19. So it's up to all of us to do nothing, basically, indoors and listen to things and watch things and try and pass the time while not spreading a virus. It sounds remarkably dull and helpless in a way, but it's the most that we can do is to do nothing, really. And so to have quality entertainment like what Big Finish puts out is a big way to do it. So yes, once again, thanks Steve and everyone at Big Finish for continuing to pump out the quality content all these years, and especially right now.
One thing we're very sad to have had to postpone is our annual Big Finish Day. But I think we've been looking at the things that other folks are doing. So the Phantom film events, I watched all the way through. The very first one with, I think, as you pointed out, had Annette Badland on it, had Sophie Aldred on it. You know, there are ways and means of making things happen. So I would just point out as well, because we do get a lot of emails where people say like, "Hey, why don't you do this? Hey, why don't you do that?" Whatever anybody has thought about, you can absolutely guarantee that we've either already thought about it or we're in the process of trying to make it happen. So aside from why don't you give everything away for free? That's one thing that we were not able to do. But all of the other sort of ideas of the ways and means of using technology to reach out to people, we are trying our best, and we're doing our very best to do that.
Well done. Well, thank you, Steve. We'll be back shortly after the break. This is funny. We're almost like 45 minutes into this episode. We haven't even announced what the hell's on this episode, apart from you, Steve, of course. But Kieran Highman and Richard Tipple are two of the four people who colorized an episode of Daleks Master Plan. Day of Armageddon is the one. It was screened at Gallifrey 1 this past February. I watched it. It was amazing. It was supposed to also have its first UK screening at the G'day the Doctor convention, which has sadly been postponed, of course, because of the pandemic. Kieran Highman went and is also working on Evil of the Daleks. He released a short clip of that. Links in the show notes to watch that. But I sat down.
Dedicated to Nick Briggs.
Oh, was it? Oh, excellent. But it was earlier this week that I sat down with Kieran Highman and Richard Tipple of Doctor Hue, Hue, get it, about the colorization of the Daleks Master Plan Part 2. And here is that interview now. I was lucky enough to be at Gallifrey 1 in February of 2020, before the world shut its doors to everything else, and watched a colorized version of a 1960s Doctor Who episode, and now I get to talk to two of the chaps who are responsible for it. Richard Tipple in the UK, hello.
Hey, how you doing?
I'm all right. And Kieran Highman in Perth, Australia, how you doing?
Good. How's it going?
Not bad. So this is I don't know what stop this is on the press tour that you have been on, basically talking about the colorized version of episode 2 of Daleks Master Plan, Day of Armageddon. But I haven't heard it, so it'll be new to me. So where did the genesis of this project start, do you think, between the two of you?
Well, it started when I just thought I'd try colorizing a few things. I was getting into After Effects, and I realised what it could do. And I thought, oh, wow, I could try and use this software to colorize some footage. So I think I grabbed a couple of scenes from the Hartnell era, gave it a go, uploaded it to YouTube, and I got quite a buzz, really, out of all the comments and all the views that were kind of clocking up on it. And people would say, oh, you should do a whole episode. And I thought, rather naively, yeah, sure, I'll give that a go. Then I kind of rather blindly decided just to begin with shot 1 of episode 2 of Daleks Master Plan, because it's such a cool episode. And yeah, the rest is history, really. It became quite clear very, very early on that there was just no way I was going to be able to finish this on my own, and that I'd need some help. So I had to find some really talented colorization artists who were also massive Doctor Who fans, which is quite a difficult kind of proposition to find. But I managed to stumble upon a brilliant team, really, with Justin, Scott, and Kieran. And between the four of us, we got there and we got it over the line.
Well, I remember watching that video that you put up of like the first scene of Day of Armageddon. I don't know what year that was, 2013 or 14 or something like that.
Yeah, I think it was January 2014, I think.
And that was one of the first colorization videos I think I saw. And then I got into it in the next couple of years, and you got me onto the project when you saw a clip that I'd done from the Celestial Toymaker. Then, yeah, you asked me on, and I did one shot to begin with, which was that incredibly difficult shot that you gave me with the smoke overlay from episode 2.
Yeah, well, that was a kind of sink or swim sort of shot. That's by far the hardest shot in the whole thing, I think, to actually achieve a realistic kind of look.
Because it's not a realistic looking shot anyway, the way just the composite between those two bits of footage. It's not realistic. It's not convincing when you put it in color, because you're putting color on top of it. So you're putting it on top of the smoke as well. It just doesn't gel that well. You have to really work at it. When did Scott come into it and Justin? They were before me, weren't they?
They were, yeah. I think Scott was the first person I bought in, and then Justin soon after. When we saw some of his stills work, I thought that might be really helpful. It was quite a good skill set at the time, because Scott worked primarily in Photoshop, and I worked with After Effects. It was really fun finding a way that those two kind of pieces of software could speak to each other. So yeah, and then Justin is Photoshop 2 and Kieran is After Effects. So we had a kind of nice 50-50 split. Yeah, it was really cool.
I'm an Adobe person. I use Adobe Audition for this very podcast that you're listening to. I have a little bit of limited experience with Premiere. After Effects terrifies me. Photoshop, I stumble through. How do you use these respective programs to colorize a moving episode of Doctor Who from 1966?
Well, in terms of After Effects, you essentially break the shot into kind of segments. So you just duplicate your layers. And you might turn one layer into the face, the next layer into a hair, the next layer into kind of a shirt or whatever, and you just draw masks around it, and then you apply colour, and you tweak the masks as you go. There's no shortcuts, and it involves a lot of artistry to make sure that you get the colours out that you want to get out. And then there's all sorts of things you can do to try and make it look like that colour is actually in there, and is sat within the frame, rather than the kind of a slightly kind of watercolour overlay, which I think some colorizations can look like if you're not careful. But yeah, I mean, After Effects is an amazing piece of software. It does take a lot of time to get to grips with. Luckily, I had quite a lot of training in it through what I do as a job, so I had a basic understanding. And yeah, I was able to kind of apply those basics to take it to the next level.
Yeah, and I like working with After Effects as well, because once you've made your layers and you've essentially traced around each element in the scene, you can just very easily go and change the colours if you change your mind or something's not working. You can just slightly adjust the hue or the saturation, rather than in Photoshop. Once you've done it, it's basically done, and it takes a lot of work to go back and do it again. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, if you want to change some lighting or anything in the scene, it doesn't take much, or change the feathering or something like that.
So are you actually like sort of rotoscoping, like basically moving a frame, coloring everything in, or is there like a way that you can sort of like, I'm a bit of a noob when it comes to these things, or can you like match a moving image and have that color just stay to that sort of portion of the image as the frames advance? I mean,
you can track. You basically work with one element at a time. Like, I'll color a person's shirt for the whole 20-second shot and then do their trousers or their face or their hands or something. You don't do one frame at a time doing everything in it. It's like each part of the scene you do everything for, and then go back and do another element.
It is an interesting one though. It takes there's not really many shortcuts, so you can track stuff, and that's massively helpful. But you're dealing with kind of low quality footage from the 60s that's had all sorts of stuff done to it already. You're not dealing with high quality HD footage, which After Effects would be able to kind of read the pixels on a lot more easier. So even when you track stuff, there's going to be a lot of mistakes in there that you need to kind of delve in and fix kind of quite manually.
Well, I was watching your one of your appearances on Josh Snare's YouTube channel, and you mentioned that you actually sort of like restored it as well. Before you even started putting color-wise. So what, the restoration team's work on it for the Lost in Time DVD set wasn't good enough? Like, it had to be even better for you to actually start animating it?
Before we go any further, I think Kieran and I would both like to express our absolute joy with the work that the restoration team does. Yeah. It is phenomenal, and they are unbelievably talented people. That said, I mean, when did its DVD come out? Lost in Time, 2003 or something?
It wasn't long after Day of Armageddon was handed back, I think, which is 2002. Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, technology has come on an unbelievable amount in that period of time. You know, it's not even that short a period. You know, things have come a long way. So we had tools available to us that they simply wouldn't have had at the time. So, yeah, I'm sure Kieran agrees. Colorization is only as good as what you're applying it to, which is why whenever you see colorization, it's all about the restoration done to the original film print to begin with. You know, like that fantastic First World War documentary. I wasn't actually bowled over by the colorization in that, but I was bowled over by the restoration that had gone into the footage. It looked like it was shot yesterday. Mm-hmm. So you can do a lot of amazing stuff to get the footage up to scratch. And only really once that is ready do you ever start thinking about what colour you're going to apply to it.
Mm. And we did do a couple of things that the restoration didn't do, was like replace the title captions at the beginning of the episode where it says Dave Armageddon and by Terry Nation. We replaced those digitally, which they often do for the DVDs, but they didn't for that episode.
But it was quite fun because, you know, you've got the really bleached out text written by Terry Nation, you know, and we just drew the Dalek behind it, and we knew exactly where the eye stalk was pivoting, so we just created a pivot at the bottom of the eye and had it move up and down in time with its eye movement, and essentially created what that shot looked like before the title was put on, and then we can recreate the title on top using kind of, you know, nice clear crisp text, and we used the right font and everything so that it was it looked exactly how it was intended to look.
Yeah, and I did the same with the Hartnell shot, because he doesn't really move when the caption comes up in front of his face, so it was easy to recreate.
And it's in shocking, like, bold yellow, basically, as it appears there, which was a choice, I guess. So were there you know, there were like occasional production shots, the odd sort of official photo here that appear in color and stuff that were easy to match up to. But how often did you sort of have to look at things and sort of like make a guess at what color things would be, or like the title of the Day of Armageddon font? Like, did you have to sort of think, well, let's make it this color and see how it looks?
Well, I think we wanted yellow because that was how the 70s titles were done.
I was going to say,
I think that's where it comes from.
Yeah, I got a Pertwee vibe from it, yeah.
Because I think I've seen a lot of colorizations going back a long time that have used yellow for the titles. And I couldn't really remember where I first saw it, but it's what I've always used. And Scott's always used it as well, and now they've used it on the animations as well. So
what about the other color? You know, I never seen Mavic Chen's shirt so nice powder blue and stuff. Like, where does all the color information from all these come from?
That's a great one to ask, actually, Kieran. There's a nice behind the scenes photo, isn't there?
Yeah. There's a few behind the scenes color photos from the camera rehearsals of episode 8 of the Daleks Master Plan, which are in private hands, so they're not often seen, you know. But in that you can see things like Mavic Chen's costume. You don't see the colour of his makeup, though, because he's not wearing it, Kevin Stoney. And there's not a lot of other characters in episode 8 that turn up in episode 2. So the references were limited, and none of the sets are the same either. But we took things like the blue floor that you see in those episode 8 photos. We used that colour for the floors in episode 2. But, you know, Katerina doesn't appear in episode 8, Brett, and all the photos of Stephen and Sarah, they're not in their costumes. Mm-hmm. So, a lot of it was guessing. I think we just chose what we thought looked best for the colour of Stephen's jacket, his corduroy. That's brown.
I think I had a jacket like that while I was at university, so I think I based the colour.
It's a pretty safe guess, that one.
Yeah.
But things like the uniforms.
The uniforms presented loads of questions, yeah, you know. So when we could, we took colour references, and, you know, if there was things that had been reused that were similar, you know, like I think the control panel and that final scene on the spa, like some of the colours there had been kind of, would seem similar stuff used in the Pertwee era, so it was really easy to just be like, oh, that's going to look right on that sort of equipment. So we made those decisions. Other times it's just completely kind of creative freedom, really. Like, we could have made the buckles on, I use it a lot, this example, but the buckles on Brett's strap. They could have been silver or gold, but I think we went for brass because it complemented the brown of his suit. But we went for a brown suit. We could have gone for a green suit. I don't know if there's even colour references for that. So
yeah. I think there was one interview where Jean Marsh said that she remembered her costume being brown in the last few years. She said something like that, which is not foolproof, people's memory. But if someone has a memory like that, you may as well go with it,
So you're scouring interviews from 1960,
yes.
whatever, basically to say what color did they describe their costume as, and using that as a reference.
I mean, really, we could just talk to Peter Purvis, couldn't we? Because he has a pretty good memory.
He does.
So he might just remember everything.
Well, I mean, the model of the spa that was used in episode 2, the little model shot, that actual model still exists today. We managed to find fantastic colour photos of it taken quite recently. So we were able to use those colours to apply to that model shot, and we know that it's 100% exactly how it would have looked had it been shot in colour.
And of all the delegates that are in episode 2, it's just Trantis and Salation, I think, who turn up in the colour photos from episode 8. So we know what colour they were, but the others we don't.
And that scene where the alarm rings and everyone's running around in a panic is I understand that was probably a tougher scene to colorize, given all the movement.
that was shot 90, and I know that's shot 90 because it's burnt into my brain because that was. I think everyone played their part in that shot. I think I started it, and there was so much blur and there's so much movement. But we just persevered and we kept going. I think it was, for me, personally, it was my hardest shot I worked on. But I'm really happy with the results. And Kieran did some great stuff on top and added the kind of red alert sort of kind of flashes too.
Yeah, I did a few of the delegates, and then at the end I did the added that red light from the alarm, which was like a last minute. I think that was actually the last thing we did because that was the last shot we worked on, which is why we were both working on it. And then the last bit of grading was do that light.
That was so hard. I remember I did the Daleks and the background for that shot. I love the Daleks. If there's a Dalek, I was all over that. But I remember I think I just did it and I package it up and I'd send it over to Kieran. And then, him being in Australia and me being in the UK would work quite nicely because I'd just go to bed and wake up and he'd have got a lot further with it. And then I could pick it up again and carry on. And it was just, we know what the colours were, so it was completely seamless to just kind of pass things around that way.
Mm-hmm. Why did you choose Day of Armageddon as an episode to sort of to do this massive experiment?
Oh, well, I mean, it is. I think it stems from the decision. I wanted to create something that would introduce 60s Doctor Who to a newer audience, because I personally think the 60s is the greatest the show's ever been. And I think it's really sad that a lot of kind of younger fans aren't willing to give it the time of day. They don't want to sit down and watch something that's in black and white. It just feels really kind of quite alien to them, if you'll excuse the pun. So I wanted to add some colour to make it something that was a little bit more appealing, that they could sit down and watch and not feel kind of an instant sort of kind of issue with. Mm-hmm. So with that in mind, I started thinking, okay, well, what episode would be best? And I had a good think about this, and I thought it needs to be exciting. Like people watch Doctor Who now, it's really kind of high tempo and really exciting. So I wanted to try and find something that had that sort of almost new series pacing to it. And this just stood out as such a good episode for that, because it was so exciting. There's stuff happening constantly. You've also got Daleks burning a jungle, and you've got Hartnell and Peter P and Kevin Stoney. And just there's so many big names and good characters and exciting things going on. It just felt like a really obvious candidate as a way to kind of get people hooked on 60s Doctor Who.
Mm. And in terms of doing the colorization, it tests your limits, because there's a lot of different lighting situations in the different scenes in this episode. When you've got inside the Dalek City, and you've got the jungle, and you've got the spaceship, and then when you've got the burning jungle and the lights reflecting on the bars in that one scene with Mavic Chen, that was quite difficult to do. And so, it was quite a learning curve. In fact, a lot of the time was spent redoing stuff we'd done earlier on, having learnt new techniques?
Oh, so much. I mean, when I started this kind of, because it had to fit in around life, you know, I think if we were to colorize an episode, it wouldn't actually take us as long as this is taking us. But this was just a sort of proof of concept, a very much sort of like, how do we do it? You know, and we had to remake half the episode because I looked back on stuff that I'd made 6 years ago and I thought, this is terrible. I can't possibly show that. It needs redoing. But the joy of having After Effects is that, you know, all those masks were already there, you know, so it wasn't that hard to go in there and tweak things. But yeah, I was completely focused on this. I didn't do any other kind of colorization. So now I finished it and I'm looking at my kind of channel on YouTube or whatever, and I'm thinking, oh my word, the stuff up there is dreadful because it shows what my work was like 6 years ago. So I probably need to do a few more varied colorizations and just put them up there just to kind of even things out a little bit. Kieran has this unfathomable ability to do other colorizations while working on this project. I had no idea where he found the time or energy to do that. And I was in awe of him the whole time. But yeah, it was funny. We did have to go back and fix things that we had done very early on just because we'd learnt so much and we'd improved so much.
Mm. Well, I mean, you mentioned the Peter Jackson World War I film. There's another series that's on Netflix that I have watched a few times because I like World War II, and it's called World War II in color in HD, and they've been up-res, and I don't know what the technical quality is, but the immediate impact is that color makes it seem much closer to today. It's just a translation that, okay, this is happening right before you. Like these are colors and images that you are familiar with. When you're watching black and white, sometimes there's that separation, I think. And so when I was watching Day of Armageddon at Gallifrey 1, like it just felt like I'm just watching like a new episode of Doctor Who in a way. There's that sort of like immediacy to color. You know what I mean?
And did you enjoy it?
I really did. And I was also like enjoying what the crowd reactions to it were. Like I imagine that some of them were there to see it again because they've got the Lost in Time box set. But Gallifrey 1, there's a host of like old fans like me and like new fans who perhaps have never bought these on DVD. Lost in Time came out on DVD like over 10 years ago. So this might have been their first time watching that particular episode, and hearing
so cool.
the cheers and bit, when William Hartnell does his little line, now you shut up, sir. It was such a great laugh from the audience and applause and everything. Yeah, Kieran, you were there. What was that like to be interviewed by Gary Russell on stage about it just beforehand, and then to watch the reaction of it?
Oh yeah, it was great. I mean, I had my friends there. I know Sophie Isles, I think, was saying it was her first time watching the episode, which was quite nice, for me to think, you're watching my colorization and it's the first time you're seeing this episode. Bit of pressure, thinking it better be good. But it was great being in a room of like 1,000 people watching this episode. Just even divorced from the fact that it's in color, hearing the reactions, the cheers when Stephen sits up for the first time and comes on camera, and when Nick Courtney shows up on camera for the first time. And the laughter as well is great. It's things like Salation, his funny walk.
Yeah.
As well as the cheers when Hartnell grabs the Terranium core. That was great. It was a great moment. Yeah, talking to Gary was always great fun. I think I held myself well enough on stage. I think I was sort of flailing for something to say at that moment, but I think I got the message across.
I think you did. It was a Sunday morning. We were all kind of tired at that point.
Yeah, knackered from Saturday night, actually.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, so it was awesome that Gallifrey 1 showed it. You were all slated to have a UK premiere with G'day the Doctor before COVID-19 shut everything in the world down. What distribution hopes and plans and dreams do you have for such a thing, which is not an official BBC output? Therefore, you kind of have to be careful, I'm assuming, about where and when you show such a thing.
Well, essentially, unless we've got BBC permission, we're not going to show it anywhere because we don't own it. So I think we'll be continuing trying to get on the convention circuit so like people can see it. But I think the ultimate game, I think Kieran would agree here, is the dream is a DVD release, maybe just kind of bundling it on as an extra. perhaps when they find all those missing episodes of Daleks Master Plan in a loft somewhere, they can bundle this on as an interesting extra, because I'm sure people would be very interested to see it.
Well, if they find the other episodes, we'd have to colour them as well, wouldn't we?
I don't mind doing
catch-22.
that.
That's the
if
issue.
you if Phil Morris wants to drive them round to my house so I can have a good watch of them, then I'll let you know whether I can colorise them.
Yeah, I mean, the obvious question is, you're not going to stop at this one, and you're probably working on others. Does 5 and 10, the other two episodes that exist from Daleks Master Plan, are those on the list? Are they all on the list? I mean, what is next for you chaps when it comes to colorizing Doctor Who?
Well, I'm working on this episode 8 reconstruction with Josh Snares, and ultimately I think I'd like to finish The Celestial Toymaker, which is what I started before coming onto this project. But yeah, I think as a group, we are going to eventually go on to another one, whether that's Master Plan 5 or 10 or something else. I think that's up to Richard.
Yeah, I mean, it's been great fun. The reaction to it has been overwhelmingly positive, and I think it would be a shame to stop now, because otherwise all those kind of lessons we've learnt would sort of be going to waste. So yeah, we will do another one as a collective, and watch this space.
I look forward to it. I hope it doesn't take you 6 years, given what you've learned and gone through to make Day of Armageddon look like it is now. I feel like
if the BBC wanted to fund us, I'm sure we could get it done in a matter of months. If you're listening, BBC Studios,
round the clock.
Well, hey, I mean, it's happened before. There are people who have done fan stuff that have worked on the DVD and Blu-rays, and indeed doing the title sequence of the show itself in its current form. So that's the great thing about Doctor Who. I think of when Peter Capaldi was announced as the new Doctor. One of the things that he said on that live performance that has stuck with me since then is that he said, "We all make Doctor Who. Everyone makes Doctor Who," which I just find that that is such a true statement. Almost 7 years on.
I mean, most of these things are such a labor of love. You look at the people who make the animations, the missing episode animations, and all the work that goes into making the Blu-ray box sets. If people weren't doing these things for the love of it, they probably wouldn't get done.
Mm-hmm.
It's true. I don't know another fandom other than perhaps Monty Python fandom that actually put so much love into those sorts of DVD releases and stuff, and go above and beyond to create something that is really a little bit special. These aren't just kind of taken off a shelf, mapped onto a DVD and sent out there. Like that, people put everything into this. They restore it with, everything they can possibly restore it with, and they get actors back and they record interviews and they create extras. Like we're really lucky as a fandom. I think there's so much out there for us to enjoy,
and hopefully we'll all one day be able to enjoy Day of Armageddon in color on a Blu-ray set in the comfort of our homes, thanks to the hard work of your team there, chaps. Richard, Tipple, Kieran, Highman, thank you very much for joining me today.
Thank you.
Thank you. Cheers.
Thanks, Kieran and Richard. As I mentioned, they've done a bit of a press tour, essentially appearing on 3 or 4 different podcasts. And Richard was on BBC Radio leading up to the Gallifrey 1 screening. But
they're Doctor Who rock stars.
They are, really. Yeah. It's great, though. I don't know if either any of you have actually had a... Chris, you were there to see the Gallifrey 1 screening, weren't you? Yeah. I don't know.
I never got a chance to see it.
No. And you probably haven't either, Steve, probably, but it was very intriguing. No. It was very cool. So high quality work,
Mm-hmm.
Nerds working at home, colorizing 50-odd-year-old Doctor Who episodes. What a world we live in. It's just great. But
until they come back from those private collectors that Phil Morris spoke of.
That's true. And they were originally shot in color. Who could have predicted this?
Somehow Philip Morris knows who has the actual color version of Day of Armageddon.
Yeah. Good luck to him.
No more need for chroma dots.
No, yeah, take that, chroma dots. Steve Barry, Big Finish, such a great time we've had with you today. Thanks for coming on the show. Anything you want to say in closing?
Well, yeah, I wanted to say thank you to you guys as well, because, we sort of joked at the start about how long I've been angling to get on this. I mean, honestly, I wrote a charity book and you didn't have me on. The charity doesn't thank you, but I did want to thank you guys, because I've listened to this for such a long time, and it's really great to be on it, and you do such a great job as well, and you're my favourite. You're my favourite podcast. Isn't that what
Thanks,
Missy
Steve.
says?
Yes, before she kills
She murders
someone.
somebody, yeah.
Thanks a lot for that. No, I think I've only met you in person the one time when we were in England in 2015. Yeah,
In
nice.
a basement pub somewhere. Yeah,
That's right. It was at the when the Fitzroy was being renovated, so we went to the Doctor Who night at
College Arms.
College Arms. That's what it was. Yeah. Oh, happy days. Meeting people, going to London, innocent times,
socializing, drinking in basements.
What are these myths you speak of?
I was meant
It's
to
a
be
different world. It's a
I was
different
meant to be there last week drinking with you, Steve, but
Yeah.
I
alas,
know.
no.
Look, I'm sorry, but
It is all your fault, after all.
If I could have arranged it to be any other way, I would have done.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Steve, and thank you, everyone, for listening. We'll be back next week, and for obviously every week after that, because we have nothing else to do. A reminder also to Patreon subscribers that next week our Planet of the Daleks commentaries will be out on the Patreon feed with guests Toby Haydock and Paul Cornell, who are on a couple episodes each of that. But that's coming on the regular feed later this month or next month. I haven't got my list in front of me to think, but it's coming down the
probably
pipe
sometime
anyway.
in May for those ones. Yeah.
Quite possibly, yeah. So we're getting through this. We hope you are as well, everyone. Stay safe and stay at home for the safety of all of us, if you will. So until the next time, I am Stephen in Edmonton.
Warren in Vancouver.
Chris in Edmonton.
And Steve in London.
So long for now.
You've been listening to Radio Free Skaro. Find us online at radiofreeskaro.com, follow us on Twitter and Tumblr at Radio Free Skaro, subscribe to us on iTunes, and donate to the show at patreon.com/Radio Free Skaro. Thank you.